Hi, you're sewing with Cody. In this video, we are quilting a table runner, which I just finished, and I'll have a video on how I did this. But what I'm showing you now, because this is one of my favorite parts, is the actual quilting. So I love free motion quilting. I love using ruler work, but sometimes you just want something simple. You want something extremely uniform. So I like just either stitching outside the ditch or using a decorative stitch. But my favorite foot of all times when it comes to quilting or it comes to doing just about anything is the number 10D. And the number 10D allows you to use the built-in dual feed with the 770. But what I'm doing, this is excellent for quilting, stitching in the ditch. I'm not much of a person who likes to stitch in the ditch because the act of stitching in the ditch is to basically not see the stitches. The problem I always have is sometimes you see it and sometimes you don't. So I like to stitch outside of the ditch. So either if it's straight line, stitching on either side of that seam, or using a decorative stitch. And that's what I'm doing today. But I'm not just using it as its default. I'm actually changing it quite a bit. So on the Bernina 770, I am using stitch 1397. But as you can see on the screen, I severely altered this stitch. So I really changed the stitch width. I really changed the stitch length. And I also moved the needle position over to the right 5 spaces. And the purpose of doing this is if you look at my stitches, see how they're only stitching in that sashing? So by me altering the stitch, I am able to use the guide on the number 10D foot, which is what makes this foot so amazing. And with the 770, we have a 9mm stitch width machine, so we can really manipulate the design and really move it wherever we want. Now, if you have a 880, a 790, or a 780, you would be able to display that foot with that guide on the screen, and then when you manipulate your stitch, you'd be able to manipulate it and keep it on one side or the other of that guide. With the 770, I don't have that privilege, but that's fine. It just takes some more trial and error. But that's what makes the 790, 780, and 880 so amazing. But what I'm doing, as you can see, is so I move that needle position over, and so I'm able to stitch. I'm going to try and do this and film at the same time, but I'm able to keep that decorative wave on the sashing and the sashing only. So I'm not stitching into the main part of the quilt. So this gives you this look, and it gives it to you perfectly. So I'm able to ride that guide right along that seam and then only stitch this wave stitch in the sashing. It's so awesome. So I can just use my guide and ride it right along that seam, and it's only going to stitch inside the sashing because that's how I manipulated it. So what I had to do is I had to move my needle all the way over to the right, and then I had to make my stitch width narrow enough to ensure that only stitches on the right side of the guide. And I I think I decreased the stitch length a little bit, so it was a little bit tighter. Because if I would have if I would have made it narrower, it'd been too straight of a stitch and not as wavy. But this will just be kind of like part one of the using the number 10D foot, because there's so many things you can use this foot for. But I just thought this was something that was really neat, and I really wanted to share this because you can do this with so many stitches, just by completely manipulating the stitch using this foot with the guide, and it's just amazing. So use 790, 780, and 880 customers who have that big 7-inch screen and where it displays the foot that you're actually using. You have a leg up on everyone else because you don't have to do some trial and error. You can just do it all on the screen and you're good to go. All right, well, I hope everybody enjoyed this video, and hopefully this gives you some ideas. And keep a lookout for the video on how to do this table runner because it's really neat using the grid, the creative grid ruler that is recommended for this. All right, well, happy sewing.